Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to jump right into one of the biggest choices anyone building in the cloud has to make today: containers or serverless. It's a decision that really defines how your applications get built, how they get deployed, and ultimately how they scale. So, this is the question every development team is facing. You need your app to be flexible, you need it to be resilient, and you definitely don't want to be locked into just one cloud provider. So, which path do you take? Because believe me, the answer is going to impact everything from your daily workflow all the way to your company's bottom line. At a glance, these two models look like they're from completely different planets. On one side, you've got containers, these self-contained packages you build and you manage. On the other side, you have serverless, these tiny, on-demand functions where the cloud provider basically handles everything for you. But here's the secret. This isn't really about containers versus serverless. It's actually about something much deeper, much more fundamental. It really comes down to a choice between two totally different philosophies for building software. Think of containers as the you build it, you run it model. Your team's in the driver's seat. You package up the application, all its dependencies, the runtime, everything into this neat portable unit. You have total, fine-grained control over the entire environment, which, can be incredibly powerful. And then there's serverless, which is the you configure it, they run it model. Literally, all you do is provide the code. The cloud platform handles the servers, the scaling, the patching, all of it. You're effectively abstracting away the entire infrastructure. So the crucial point is this. This debate isn't about which technology is more modern or better. It's a fundamental strategic choice. How much control does your team really need? And how much of that day-to-day operational responsibility are you willing to just hand off to your cloud provider? Okay, so how does this big choice, control versus abstraction, actually play out in the real world? Let's dig into two places where you'll feel the impact right away: speed and, the freedom to move, portability. Okay, so probably the most talked about thing with serverless is the infamous cold start. If your function hasn't been used in a little while, there can be a noticeable delay the first time it gets called. For a user clicking around on your site, that delay, that's a direct hit to their experience. Containers, on the other hand, since they're always running, they're always warm. They're ready to go, giving you that consistent, predictable performance. And this table, now it really just nails the whole portability argument. With containers, it's like packing a suitcase. Everything you need is inside, so you can take that suitcase to any hotel: AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, whatever. But serverless functions, they're much more deeply integrated with that specific provider's services, their event triggers, their security models. That creates a much higher risk of vendor lock-in, making it a whole lot harder to switch clouds down the road. Okay, let's get really practical. Forget the fancy architecture diagrams for a second. Let's talk about 3 a.m. An alarm goes off. Something is broken. What does it actually take to run and debug these systems when things go wrong in the real world? And boom, we're right back to that core trade-off. With containers, that operational burden is on your team. You manage the infrastructure, you set the scaling rules, you handle the patching. With serverless, you hand all of that responsibility over to the cloud provider, which, let's be honest, can save your team a ton of time. But, and this is a big but, that convenience comes with its own massive challenge. And it really boils down to this simple question: how in the world do you debug something that literally vanishes into thin air a few seconds after it runs? Just put yourself in an engineer's shoes for a minute. The problem only exists for milliseconds, so good luck trying to reproduce it. A single click from a user might kick off a whole chain reaction of a dozen different functions. Trying to trace that path is a real headache. And now try doing that across both AWS and Azure. It's a nightmare. Getting your logs and metrics to line up is a major, major challenge. So, okay, we've got containers for control and portability, and we've got serverless for amazing efficiency with certain kinds of jobs. So what do the pros do? How do the really experienced architects actually put this all together to build real multi-cloud apps? Well, the smart ones, they don't fall for that trap of picking just one for everything. They use a hybrid approach. So let's imagine a really common scenario. You're building a SaaS platform. It needs to run on multiple clouds, and it has to do a bunch of different kinds of work. And this right here is the blueprint. This is how it's done. For the parts that users interact with directly, your public APIs, they use containers. Why? Because you need that rock-solid, low-latency performance every single time. But for all the stuff happening in the background, processing a file someone uploaded or running a report every night, serverless is perfect. It's cost-effective, it's super efficient, and you're not paying for a server to just sit there doing nothing. Okay, let's wrap this up and bring it all home. Here's a super practical checklist you can actually take back to your team to help make these big decisions. So before you write a single line of code, ask these questions. Is a super fast response time critical? Like, is a user literally waiting for an answer? You're probably leaning towards containers. Does the workload need to remember stuff from one request to the next? Is it stateful? Again, that's a container's job. But then, how spiky is your traffic? Does it go from 0 to a bazillion requests and then back to 0 in 5 minutes? Man, that is a textbook case for serverless. Just thinking through these questions for each piece of your system will point you in the right direction. But here's the key thing to remember. This is just guidance. It's not a rule book. The goal is to make a smart, deliberate choice for each specific part of your application. This is not about some company-wide mandate that says we only use containers or we only use serverless. And finally, let's talk about the traps, the common mistakes we see teams make all the time. They try to run a massive, constant data pipeline on serverless, and then they're shocked when the bill is astronomical. Or the opposite. They build out this huge, complex Kubernetes cluster just to run a simple job once an hour. That's like using a sledgehammer to hang a picture. And my personal favorite, they assume their app is portable just because it's in a container, but they never actually try to run it on another cloud. You have to test it, or you are going to be in for a very rude awakening. So you see, in the end, this whole debate, it's not about picking a winner. It's not containers versus serverless. It's about building a team that has both of these powerful tools in their toolkit and has the wisdom to know exactly when to use each one. So the real question isn't which one you should choose. It's, is your team ready to master both?